He said, if you are wanting a truly innovative solution to a problem, don't ask an expert. Because an expert, by definition of being an expert, they think they know everything there is to know about that thing because they're the expert. So they're not going to come up with any truly novel or innovative solutions. They're going to regurgitate all the stuff they already know. In that moment, when the person hasn't heard you the way you intended, you do not say, you didn't understand me or you didn't get me. You say,
Jem, thank you for coming on the show today. I'm really anxious to dive in on this conscious communication, getting a better understanding of it. Let me get a little bit about your background. I got Jem Fuller, author, The Art of Conscious Communication for Thoughtful Men. I want to know who's buying this book. Is it, I'll ask you, I'll get to the bottom of this a little bit. Is it men buying or is it women buying it? For the men, I want to know that one. You're a leadership coach. He teaches executives in government, private companies, as well as foundations. Today, we're going to talk about the art of conscious communication, effective personal and professional communication skills. Jem, thank you for coming on today.
Joe, thanks for having me on your show. It's been a little lead up to it. We've been, mapping it out over time, and here we are. So it's good to be here with you, mate.
Yeah, it's usually a process. I really like to get to know somebody before I have them come on, because I do a deep dive. I've watched a bunch of videos of you and, try to get an understanding of it. And I think there's a lot that I want to dive into about leadership and conscious communication in leadership today. But who is the buyers of this book? Is it truly men?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, look, occasionally. Yeah, occasionally. Yeah. But no, you're 100% right. It's mainly females that buy the book, and I get it. Yep, a husband, boyfriend, or son, and they read the book first and get a lot from it. So I get emails from women all around the world saying, "Hey, thanks for writing this book. I really enjoyed reading it." And I mean, look, there are communication strategies in there that apply to everybody,
right?
And also the women that email me say thank you because I understand my husband better now. Or I even had a really lovely email from a woman in Germany saying, thank you for writing this book. It has changed the way I'll be raising my sons. And that really touched my heart. That was, if the book helps one person out there somewhere, then Absolutely. It was worth writing, so. But yeah, look, it is mainly women. Men don't tend to pick up self-help books.
Right.
Men are more interested in reading books around how they can grow their business or get better results. But they're the one I'll say we, I'm a man. We're the ones who actually need it, especially in the space of communication. The number of men that actually open up to me and say, wow, I'm pretty good with my communication at work. I'm pretty good with that. But then I get home and it just all turns sideways. And my partner says to me, you're terrible at communication, and that was my lived experience in my first marriage as well. And it's one of the reasons I got curious about this, because at work, I was a corporate leader and I had a lot of staff, and I thought I was pretty good at communicating our vision and mission and where we're going and strategies and etc. But then I'd get home and, when it was more personal or more meaningful or closer to home, my mouth would dry up or my brain would go foggy and I couldn't communicate clearly with her what I was trying to say, and it would all kind of fall apart a bit. And I thought, isn't that interesting that given the different contexts, our communication can deteriorate?
Yeah, I never thought. I never thought of your book being one that is for teaching young men, but what a great tool that could be.
Yeah, there's a chapter towards the end of the book, and it's all about the next generation. I'm the father of two sons and now of two younger stepkids as well, a girl and a boy, but two sons, and their mother and I separated when they were 8 and 10 years old, and they're now 20 and 18. So for the last 10 years, I've been single parenting, week on, week off, but in the week when I'm on, single parenting and raising these two boys. And look, every parent understands this. There's no complete guidebook or manual on how to parent or how to raise children, and we just kind of bumble along and try and figure it out as we go. But I have tried to be really conscious about improving in the areas where I felt my dad wasn't great,
right.
And look, a lot of love and respect to my dad who died 14 years ago. He did his best, but there were areas where I felt that were not great at all,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know, and I've
Yeah.
really tried to improve them, you know, and one of the main ones was that I didn't feel like I could go and talk to my dad when I was a younger boy, younger man, and then you know, as a teenager coming into being a young man. I didn't feel safe to talk with my dad about the really deep stuff.
Mm.
Uh, you know, I didn't feel like I could be sensitive or emotional or vulnerable around him because it was that old school toughen up, harden up, suck it up, man up, be tough,
Yeah.
don't cry like a girl. That was
Yeah.
the way I was raised. And so all of the more vulnerable, sensitive side to being a human, we all have it, got pushed down or, you know, swept under the rug. And I didn't want that for my boys. So I wanted them to be able to talk with me about anything. I made a real effort in that way. And it's working. You know, they talk with me about everything and anything. And I'm sure they've got their secrets that they have to hide from
Of
me because
course.
that's what
Yeah.
kids do, right? They've got to have
Yeah. They
their
don't
own
want to tell dad
autonomy.
everything.
They don't want to tell you everything, but they
Yeah.
certainly tell me a lot. You know, there's been moments as they've been growing up and they've said, Dad, I got to tell you something. And they tell me, and I'm like, oh, geez, I wish you hadn't told me that. But anyway, you know.
You just be thankful they're telling. Do you think, you know, from what you went through, whereas you were intimidated to talk to your father, to where your sons are not so intimidated to speak to you, does that translate into the workplace as they're going into the workplace compared to when you went into the workplace? I
Yeah,
would
look,
say
I
it
think
does,
it
doesn't it?
does. I think it really does. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it translates, it all starts at home. Who
Yeah.
we are in every role that we play, whether it's, you know, your professional role or your social roles or your partner roles, every role you go and play, it starts at home. It starts from who you are and who you've become through growing up and the environment that you've been in. So yeah, look, it does make a difference. And yeah, I mean, I know. So my 18-year-old is in the second year of a carpentry apprenticeship. So he left high school to work full time, and he had to grow up pretty quickly because he was now working with
Mhm.
men on a building site and getting up at 5:30 in the morning and you know, going and doing that. My older boy, who's 20, is at university, so he's not in the workforce yet, but he's been working a part-time job in a restaurant, working in a kitchen. So they're both starting to get their taste of the work environment, and I know that they both communicate openly, you know, with the people that they work with. But more importantly for me, you know, I watch them with their partners. The 18-year-old has a girlfriend, and the way he treats her is so respectful and caring and thoughtful and kind.
Mhm.
And they talk about everything. You know, they have conversations that I wouldn't have even known how to have with my girlfriend when I was 18, you
Yeah.
know. So I can see it's certainly starting to translate as they become young men for sure.
I can imagine. Well, I see that you've got three pillars. You got leadership, communication, and culture. I think let's start with what is conscious communication? What is your definition?
Yeah, so let's just have a look at the simplest form of definition of conscious communication. So to
Mhm.
be more conscious of anything is just simply to be more aware of it. The more conscious we are of something, the more aware of it we are. So in the context of communication, just being more aware of the communication itself. And that, I mean, we can talk for a long time about what that actually looks like.
Right.
But very simply, quite often in communication, because of our ego, our sense of identity, which, by the way, is an important part of being human. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't have an ego. I'm just
Sure.
saying that by being more aware of it. But quite often, our ego is driving the bus, so to
Mhm.
speak. Quite often, our ego or our sense of identity is the reactionary part in any given situation. And it's defending our ideas, it's defending our politic, it's defending our sense of who we think we are. So, in communication, quite often, the ego is sitting there listening, but ready to jump in and defend your point of view, or queuing up to speak, or internally becoming very defensive over a standpoint, things like this. And that means that we're not aware of the communication itself. We're only really aware of what we want and or what we're
From the
trying to
conversation.
convince the other person of. Yeah, what we're trying to
Yeah.
tell the other person.
Yeah.
So, being more conscious is being more aware of the communication itself, which means being more aware of the other person, being more aware of the outcomes, the potential outcomes for the greater good, not just for you, but for the greater good of the situation. In the context of work, how is this communication serving the mission or the vision of the organization, right? How is this helping us achieve our highest goals as a collective of people that work together to try and, you know, sing from the same song sheet, so to speak, which quite often we forget. So
Sure.
how is the communication serving the greater good? That's being more conscious of it. And then communication, the simplest definition comes from the Latin word communicatio, which is a sharing, not a telling, a sharing. And the verb communicare, which means to make common. So communication, the act of communication is to make something common, to have it understood, which doesn't mean we always need to agree,
Sure.
but for communication to be successful, it would suggest that we come to an understanding. You know, you understand me and I understand you. And so when we have more conscious communication, you combine those two together. It's really about common. You know, the root of the word communication is common or community, working together. That's why I like the idea of communication, you know.
When you're out there coaching, how often do you come across somebody that's a team leader or a CEO or an executive in a major company that is aware of conscious communication? Is it common?
Well, to varying different degrees. No, it's more common for people to be unaware of the communication. It's more common for people to be not even aware that their ego is driving them through every moment. That's
Yeah.
more common. Uh, However, there are varying different degrees of self-awareness. You know, some people are naturally self-aware. Some people have put the effort in and read the books and created some practices around improving their self-awareness. But you know, we're fighting against our nature. You know, as a species,
Mhm.
we're naturally closed-minded. We're naturally opinionated. We're naturally driven by ego, which is our sense of identity, and that mechanism within us evolved with us as a species to keep us safe, right? So our ego is there as a protection mechanism. So it's naturally very defensive. It's fueled by fear. It resists change, and we become very close-minded. So then we have things like confirmation bias, where you have a very strong idea around something, and even in the face of evidence to show that your idea is not right, we double down on our original idea. Confirmation
Sounds about right.
bias. You know,
Yeah.
so as a species, we are working against some of our natural tendencies, which is to defend our point of view, to defend our sense of identity, um, etc. So it does take conscious, i.e., intentional practice to develop the ability to open your mind, to develop the ability to lean in with curiosity, to lean into confrontation and seek to understand the person who has a very different perspective. That takes practice, but we can develop that ability. And the leaders that I've worked with that have dedicated time and effort to developing these abilities become much better leaders. And then they can create environments where the people in their teams feel safe enough to have a crazy idea, you know, or to share their opinion, even though they're a junior. They say, "Hey, have we looked at it like this?" Now, not every idea that people in your teams have are going to be an idea that lands and works. But if you have an environment where people feel safe enough to come up with crazy ideas, that's where genius solutions to big problems come from,
Mhm.
you know. But
Yeah.
to do that, you have to demonstrate to them that you are really curious about the way they see things, you know, not shutting them down. So we can do it. It just takes a bit of practice.
When you're coaching somebody, how do you get them to start being more conscious of this communication process? Because it must take a while. This can't happen overnight.
Yeah, no, it's a way of being. There's no finish line. You don't get to a finish line and say, "Yes, I've made it to being fully
Right.
self-aware."
Yeah.
It's a it's a way of being. It's a practice. It's like anything, you know, if you understand the benefits of meditation, mindfulness meditation, you don't become good at it and then stop doing it. You know, meditation becomes something that is a part of your life, or exercise. If you enjoy going to the gym and you know the benefits of working out,
Yep.
You don't get strong and then stop. You keep working out, right? So that's what it's like in terms of practicing self-awareness. I share some, with the clients that I work with, I share with them some of the human macro behavioral patterns. I teach them how to read the matrix of human behavior so they can notice when they're doing something and go, that's why I'm behaving like this in this moment. And we get better at catching ourselves and pausing, take a pause, take a breath, and then choose how I want to proceed now or choose how I want to respond. And that is a practice every day, catching yourself, pausing, noticing your behavior, and then choosing how to respond. But we can create habits and ways of being that improve our functionality on a day-to-day basis.
The power of the pause. It's something that really works,
Massive,
doesn't it?
massive. It's been one of I run workshops. It's part of what I do. I run workshops for groups of people. And quite often, in fact, only yesterday, I was running a workshop for a government department down here where I live. And I said to them, if you take only one thing, just one thing from all of the stuff that I've shared with you, if you just take one thing and create it as a habit in your day-to-day life, pause often, you know.
Yeah.
And then I explain what that means, which quite simply means just pausing for 3 to 5 seconds. Notice what you can notice. Just notice your breath, notice your heart rate, notice what you can notice, and then continue. And it sounds too simple to be life changing, but it is deceptively simple, Joe. I think
Mhm.
you get it already.
Yeah.
These pause moments. If I could spin my camera around now, I'd show you on the screen behind you. I've got just one big piece of paper. It just says pause.
Really?
On the door leaving my studio,
Hmm.
same thing. One big piece of paper, and it just says pause. Right. This is me creating habitual moments to stop and pause. I did this through COVID. We were locked down here in Victoria, Australia. We were the longest locked
Yeah.
down place in the world, right? So a lot of time at home. And I wanted to really lock in some habitual moments to pause. So I took a post-it note, a little sticky note, and I stuck it on my coffee machine because one of my habits every morning is to make my coffee. I stuck it on the lid of my container where I have my coffee beans. So every morning I'd go to open my coffee beans, and just as the aroma of those roasted beans would reach my nose,
Mm.
I'd pause. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what happened after doing this for some time, the two habits become neurally associated. So now I don't have the sticky note on my coffee beans anymore. Every time I go to make a coffee, guess what I do? Habitually pause you
Mm.
know so we can habit stack, as James Clear says in his book Atomic Habits. We can habit stack the new habit you want to create, stack it onto an existing habit, and after some time they become associated, and you pause.
As a leader in a company, let's say, because I'm in a commercial real estate brokerage company here in Los Angeles. As a leader, what should I be doing to get my agents and staff to be much like this? What steps should I be taking? Just having conversations with them. Um, what how can I get them to really? Because I really see the value in this. I really think that looking at we have classes here every day for our agents, and one thing that really set us apart one time, and I even wrote a blog about it. I said, you've got to think about the people on the other side of the table from you. If you're sitting there with a broker, you're sitting there with someone that's either buying or renting a new location that you have listed. What do they want? I want you to think about that. Don't think about just what you want with you and your client. I want you to think about both sides of it. And that was such a page turner for some of our agents in their negotiations, and it really helped them have a higher success rate. And so, I can see having the empathy for people on the other side of the table works. The listening better. I mean, I'm in an office full of A-type personalities, so you can
Yeah,
imagine how that goes
yeah,
sometimes. And
yeah,
I always have to remind him: two ears, one mouth. That's my dad used to say. But
yeah.
how can I get that to trickle down through our company?
Any time that you are hoping to um, help someone to adopt a practice or a way of thinking, or to get them to develop or grow, every time you're wanting to help someone expand into their potential,
Mm-hmm.
You got to start with why. Why for them? Why should they listen to you? Why should I start doing pauses? Why should I listen more than I speak? Why should I meditate? Why? Right? If you can start with why, as in what's in it for them, how it's going to benefit them, then they're going to be more inclined to lean in and listen at least and say, "What do you got to say, Joe? What are you going to share with me now?" When they understand how it's going to benefit them. So I always start with why, what's in it for them, and then try and create some kind of emotional leverage as to why would I want to create this new habit? Right? How much does it mean to me? Is it really important enough to me to actually put the energy or the effort into creating a new habit? So creating that leverage, helping them create their own leverage to that, you know, and it's got to be something that means something to them. When you're coaching someone, so you've helped them understand that they're going to get better results at work when they go into a meeting and they are calm and centered and they've got two ears and one mouth. That the more calm they are, the more they listen, the more curious they are, the better they build rapport, the better they can lead that person to what's best for them in terms of the decision that they're going to make around their property. Right? And when they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I get that. And then you say, tell me, why is it important for you to be successful here? Why do you really care?
Mm.
What do you really care about? And find out from them, what do they really care? Is it that their kids, they want to put their kids through college, or they're saving up to buy their first house, or they want to take their wife on that trip to Paris, or husband, or whoever, right?
Sure.
Find out what they really care about. Now we've got some leverage, and then help them understand, this simple practice, when you create a habitual practice of pausing before going into a meeting, you're successful, etc. So you help them and then you make it super simple, right? I think that's the hardest part, is getting someone to understand what's in it for me, and then why should I bother? Once you can get those two engagement pieces, people are pretty prepared to give stuff a go, because everyone is driven to get something or achieve
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Why is a lot better. I used, if you want to make more money, this is what you got to do. That worked for me.
Yeah, well, some
But
people are driven um, just by money, but most people, there's something beneath the money. For
right.
most people, there's something beneath the money. And if there's not, they find out the hard way. A lot of my clients, a lot of the people that I help have successfully ticked the money box. They've made a ton of money, and they've
Mhm.
found out through that process that they're still unhappy, and they're still not fulfilled, and they're still not content, and they feel a bit um, a bit cheated by society. Like, you told me if I went and got rich, I'd be happy, and it's not the case. So I think if we can help people dig a couple of layers deeper than the money, like, why do you want the money? For what purpose? What will the money give you? Let's get to some real emotive reasons, because emotion creates the motion. If we don't have a strong reason why, we're not going to bother. And money is a surface level reason why, but the real intrinsic motivators lie deeper than that.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was thinking about something. You keep hearing about how this younger generation is coming in, and they're not concerned about making money as they are about making a difference. And
Mm.
so, you know, your style of management that you're teaching, I think, is more conducive to that, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you think that you can create a workplace full of people that are engaged, that are leaning in, that will happily do overtime, that will go the extra yard to create solutions to big problems, that want to be there, that want to actually, that feel aligned with the mission, right? Now, this sounds great, doesn't it? You're not going to create that just by saying, I'll pay you more.
Right.
Pay is a part of it, but it's only a part of it. If they know that they can earn more down the road, then that does tempt them. But if they go down the road and they're earning more, but the culture is toxic, they either come back with their tail between their legs, going, "Oh, gee, it's terrible down there," or they go on to the next thing. But if the environment isn't great, um, at the very least, the people there won't be engaged. They won't lean in. They'll clock on at 9, clock off at 5, and they don't want to go the extra yard at all. And the younger generation now, like, the tail's wagging the dog. They're saying, I can go and get work anywhere. I don't need to be here.
Right.
But when you have an environment where people show up every day and they look forward to coming to work and they look forward to working in the team that they're in and they actually care about the mission and the vision and the values, when they feel like they belong, that's what will have them hanging around.
Yeah. That's something we work on with our company is communication. We're very open. Senior leadership, well, there's only two of us. When I say senior leadership, there's not 50, there's only two of us, but very
Yeah,
open door policy, big on communication. And the younger generation, some of these young people are just right out of college and they really appreciate that. They know that they're not afraid to come in and talk to us. They're not afraid of, hey, I got a problem. Can we talk about it?
yeah,
And that I think is, well, first of all, I had to learn I had to make a change in the way I was managing people because when I grew up, coffees for closers, get the deal done, leads.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
not the case anymore. I mean, it's a different time. Now all the commercial real estate clients have access to information where we used to control it when we were starting out. So that's not the case
yeah,
anymore. So it's a completely different world. So I've had to evolve. And I think you're going to see leadership evolving even more. And it's going to be more toward what you're talking about with the conscious communication, because as a younger generation comes into our industry, the business world, especially our industry, just our
yeah,
industry, the average age is it varies 55 to 62, I hear. And we're starting
yeah,
to get younger people. That having that younger generation come into our industry is going to force an evolution of the way we manage people. And,
yes, yeah,
it's very much in line with what you're talking about. That's the way they
yeah.
want to be managed.
Yeah, and it is happening. You're right, 100%. It's changing, and so we need to get with that program. And the program is that our value as leaders and
Mhm.
as people is people being people. It's the relationship that's
Yeah.
important. If you're a doctor and all you do is diagnose and prescribe, pretty soon you're out of a job because the technology can do it better than you.
Mhm.
Right? The AI can just put a thing on your finger and the AI does a full body scan and it tells you exactly precisely what is not quite right and what you need to do and writes the prescription for you. So as a doctor, if that's all you do, you're out of a job. But the doctors that value relationships, the doctors that sit with their patients and build personal relationships with them, they will still have a place. Or the accountant, my accountant, the reason I still go to my accountant is not because of the numbers that he can crunch for me. I can get software to do that for me. I go to my accountant because we have lunch together. I go to my accountant because he cares about my business. We care about each other. That's why I'll keep him. So, and it's the same for you as a leader. Uh, and also in the work that you do, more and more the language models will be able to spit out all of the relevant data and terminology and contracts and everything written they'll be able to do. But as a leader, when you create an environment where those young people feel safe to come to your office and you've got an open door and they come in and they feel like they can talk with you about stuff, um, yeah, that's the direction it needs to go in. And it's more than just getting them to get results in terms of numbers. As you said, Joe, it's a leader really where you're leading your people is to the future version of themselves and the future version of what it looks like to be a part of this group of people that come together as a team to do this or that. It's to the future version of themselves, and the future's unknown and uncertain. It's a bit scary, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know," and you're like, "It's okay. You're safe here. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to sit with you and listen, and help you develop and expand into your potential. And that's what a good leader cares about."
Yeah, I agree. There's something I read in one of your video or articles you have is communication is more about sharing than telling. And the old way of management was always tell them and then make sure they do the work and check their productivity. And that's just not going to work anymore. Now you have to communicate with them, have a conversation with them, give them the goals, and just follow up with them and give them the free reign. And man, when we do that, we get a lot more productivity out of them because they just go do it themselves. They figure it out. If they have a question, they come and ask.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
It's interesting, watching. I've always had you've got an open door policy as a leader, and I've always had an open door policy as a dad. So my boys have always
Yeah.
been welcome to bring their friends around to my house. And I've spent time with their friends as they've been growing up as teenagers and now as young men. And it's interesting because these younger generations, so much of their communication is through typing, whether it's, you know, texting or messaging or the other apps they use. And there's a whole bunch of them, Snapchat or whatever they are,
Yeah.
right? But so much of it, they type backwards and forwards to each other, way more than we ever did. And so you'd think that they don't want to actually have a real conversation so much, but it's not true. These young boys and girls that have been coming around to my house, if I sit down with them and give them half a chance to have a real conversation and ask them some nice, gentle, open-ended questions and be present with them and listen to them and communicate with them, they love it. They
Yeah.
love it. They're craving it. And these kids actually crave the conversations with me because they say to my boys, "Oh, your dad listens. He actually just sits down and I feel safe to tell him anything."
Mhm.
And they love to sit down and have a real-time conversation. So I don't think it's true that just because they're the tech native generations, I don't think it's true that they don't want to have those old school conversations anymore. I think they still do.
I think a lot of, and I'm sure there's some that don't really fit this, but there's a lot of them that I run into, the younger generation are so much further ahead because of these things than we were,
Yeah. Yeah.
because, they've had access to information a lot of years easier than we had. And I'm amazed sometimes. I'm sitting there talking to it early, somebody right out of college. I'm like, how, I mean, it's just like you've sat there and talked to somebody that's in their 30s and been in business a while, but they've just learned it because the information's there. And so
Yeah.
really think it's a positive way to really move forward, because if you manage it properly. I think one problem we're having in our industry is the work from home, and integrating that with a company culture. And I'm finding that a lot of the people in that are working in the office are further ahead than the people working from home. And I'm not sure how to integrate some of the stuff with the work from home. I can tell they're not reading all the emails I'm sending. When they're in the office here, I just have a conversation with them. But if I want to work on company culture, how do I do that when I have percentage of my staff or agents working from home?
Yes, it's such a great question, Joe. And I don't think there's a definitive one
Yeah.
best way answer.
Probably per person,
I
right?
think,
Not like, instead of
yeah,
a
per
group.
person, per company, per team,
Yeah.
working it out. But personalize it. I think again, if people understand a benefit for them into coming in, and being around other people. So extroverts naturally want to come in and be around people. That's the
Yeah.
way they're wired. Introverts naturally want to probably stay at home or at least have their own office where they can close the door. That's where they do their best work, you know. But even for introverts, and this is coming from research that we've done on humans, even for introverts, some interaction, interpersonal interaction, just not lots of it, but some is beneficial. So the introverts get the benefit from it. They feel better from that because we're social creatures. We survived off the savannah plains by figuring out how to work in teams. It's
Right.
the whole
Yep.
reason we're still alive. We need each other, very
Yeah.
literally need each other. So we are a teams-based animal. And so if we can somehow um, incentivize or create benefits from coming in and being together that are real. People go, "Oh yeah, I love those days when we all come in together." And so let's compromise. Let's say, okay, well, you have a few days at home, but on these days, we're really encouraging everyone to come in, and this is why. This is what we do when we're all together. These are the benefits that you get. And if people start to learn that the culture of your organization is a place where we come together and this is how it benefits us, then hopefully they start to do it more. Some always more than others. Like we said, it's individual and personal, but it is tricky. It's tricky. I heard an interview with the CEO, the founding director of WordPress, the website hosting.
Mhm.
company, WordPress. During COVID, I heard him being interviewed on a podcast, and they've always had, even before COVID, they've always had a distributed workforce. They called it not remote, but just distributed. And their techs are all over the world and they all work from home. He said we even got to the point where we stopped hiring an office space in the city of our home base and we would just rent one out. And then periodically, I can't remember if it was once every 6 months or I can't remember what the periods were, but once every 6 months, say, they would get everyone in together in the same actual physical room together purely for the bonding. And he said it was great. Everyone loved it. It was, it was special. But and the people could work whenever they wanted. And the people were paid on their output, not their input. So you weren't paid on whether you clocked on at 9 and clocked off at 5. You were paid on your output, how much you were producing, which is
Sure.
easier to measure in a tech world or a sales world. But I still wonder about how the camaraderie was. I don't know if I don't know how the camaraderie was. If you spoke to a WordPress tech in Czechoslovakia and then you spoke to a WordPress tech in the Philippines, did they
Mhm.
feel any sense of togetherness or camaraderie or being part of the same WordPress environment? I doubt that they would have. Um,
Yeah.
and I think in an environment like real estate, and if you're wanting to create a team where they feel like they're part of something and they feel energized and motivated to be engaged, then you've got to get them together. They've got to actually get together.
Yeah, we find that when the agents, they're in the office, and we have great agents working from home too. I didn't want to imply that they're not, but it's the younger agents are in the office, and their culture that they've created. They go to work out at the gym together now. At 6 o'clock in the
Right.
morning, which I'm like, don't
Yeah.
call me whatever you're doing. God, do not want to
Yeah.
work out at 6 o'clock in the morning. But they do
Yeah.
it because they get energized and they come in and they do their cold calling, they do all that, and it gets them up. But
Yeah.
they've kind of created their own culture just by team culture just by being in the office, and
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing to watch. It's
Yeah.
amazing to see their growth. They're helping each other grow. They work
Mm.
different asset classes, but yet it's a very supportive environment, and I think that
Mm.
is the key for what we're trying to do. Is having that supporting each other. You said once that communication is your responsibility as the leader. Make sure they understand what you are saying. And that is something I'm kind of guilty of. I say something and then I kind of move on from it. I wonder if they really understood what I was saying. And I'm like, damn it, Jim, you got me on that one because yeah, I think it's the ego is like they need to understand what I'm saying, and that's not the
Yeah.
case. It's my responsibility to make sure that they do understand what I'm saying. And so I started talking to some agents this morning before coming in, and it's kind of an eye opener. So I thank you for putting that one out there. I even put it out as a
Yeah.
tweet, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. I think Joe, even so, yes, in leadership, and even just in life in general, if you're the one who has something to communicate. So if I'm thinking I really want to communicate this with Joe, so I'm coming to you. You're not coming to me. I'm coming up going, "Hey Joe, can we have a chat?" If you're the one who is initiating the communication, then the success of the communication is completely your responsibility. You can't just drop it on the table and walk away and expect the other person to decipher it.
yeah,
And that doesn't work because sometimes we think that we've had the most simple of pieces of information to communicate. We might say to someone, 1 + 1 = 2, and they go, "Yep," and you walk away, and they do 3, not 2, and you're like, what?"
how did we get
Um,
there? Yeah.
how did you get to that? So yes, I believe first of all, the success of the communication is the communicator's responsibility,
Mhm.
and then there's a very easy way to check in with that. So if I've come to you and said, "Hey Joe, ABC 1 2 3," after I've said what I need to say, then I just check in with you and I say, "Hey Joe, can you please just repeat back to me what you heard me say, just so I can check that I communicated well enough?" And
Yeah.
then you say back to me what you heard. Now, quite often, it's not exactly what I meant. In that moment, when the person hasn't heard you the way you intended, You do not say you didn't understand me or you didn't get me. You say, I must not have communicated that well enough. Let me try another way. And then you share the information in a different way. Then you ask again, can you tell me now what you've heard? You backwards and forwards until they say, well, what I've heard you say is ABC 1, 2, 3, and you go, ah, awesome, great, you got it.
Yeah.
So it's a very simple process. Communicate, ask them what they heard. If they haven't heard you, own it. Say, my bad, let me try another way, backwards and forwards until they've got it. And then you're like, beautiful, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine was, I've got a few years of commercial real estate under my belt. I'm talking to an agent that's been in it for about 6 weeks, and I'm talking to them about something that I thought was pretty simple, but it's just something they hadn't, it was new to them. And
Yeah.
so I went back to them like, okay, let me rephrase this because I just assumed, and they hadn't gone over it in class yet, and I thought they had, but I think it's really, the communication thing is so important, especially as leadership and understanding how it filters down
Mm,
to your team, and
mm.
it's critical. And you said I read an article, and maybe we talked about this when we did our 15-minute a month or so ago, but I think it was Jeff Bezos at Amazon as the most junior person on the team is allowed to talk to the most senior team person on the team as long as they come with data. You have to have something to back it up. You can't just say, "Oh, I think." You need to say,
Yeah.
"I think," and here's the data or the information to support it. And he goes,
Yeah.
"You would be surprised." This is from one of the managers at Amazon. You would be surprised how often we've implemented stuff from those juniors that
Yeah.
told something to a senior because the seniors actually listened.
Yeah.
I thought it
100%.
was powerful.
There's another person, Dr. Peter Diamandis. Dr. Peter Diamandis wrote the book Get Abundance. He also started the Singularity University. He also started the X Prize, which was a $10 million prize for solving a big world problem. He's quite a remarkable man. When I found out about Dr. Peter Diamandis, I couldn't believe I didn't know about him. I'm like, how did I not know about you?
Yeah.
Anyway, he said something that really stuck with me in his book. He said, if you are wanting a truly innovative solution to a problem, don't ask an expert because an expert, by definition of being an expert, they think they know everything there is to know about that thing because they're the expert. So they're not going to come up with any truly novel or innovative solutions. They're going to regurgitate all the stuff they already know. He said, if you want a truly innovative solution to a big problem, ask the janitor, ask the mail person, ask someone who doesn't know anything about it. 9 times out of 10, their idea might not fly, but 1 time out of 10, you go, oh, wow. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
would never have thought of it like that. I was just coaching a leader yesterday who was talking to me about how they just expanded and they've brought on a lot of new people, young grads, into their engineering company in the last few weeks. And he said, how do I encourage them to feel safe to speak up and have ideas? Because they're all saying, oh, we don't know anything. I said, you need to have conversations with each of them individually and say that what they bring to this company is actually um, super valuable because they're coming in with a fresh set of eyes. They're not coming in that, indoctrinated into the culture and the way
Mm-hmm.
we do things already. They're coming in with a completely fresh perspective. And they're coming in as a 20-year-old with 20-year-old way of looking at a problem that a 50-year-old's looking at, which is completely different.
Yeah.
And let them know they are not only are you happy to have them on board, but that you need them. We need you. We need your ideas. Not every idea will fly, but we need you to come and say, "Hey, have you looked at it like this?" So yeah, look, I think it's true what you were saying. The next gen coming in, that's the part of the value they bring is a way of looking at things that we're not even wired to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that's where we're headed. Is there a company that you've seen that really implemented your ideas and your systems? And as far as it completely just changed the company and took it from being, a B company to an A company. I could see that happening because once you figure out the communication aspect of it, and everybody in the company is involved, whereas before it was just the leader and just telling everybody what to do. When everybody has when their ideas matter, I can see it just elevating a company completely. Is there a company that you've worked with that you've seen that?
Yeah, there's quite a few actually. I mean, I've been doing this now for 12 years. I've been running my own consultancy for 12 years now. So plenty of examples. It was interesting a little while ago, a marketing team asked me to put together some data, some numbers to show the improvement in staff retention due to creating environments where people want to stay, where they're engaged, and what that looks like in terms of the numbers. So I went back over some of my bigger clients over the last few years, a couple of government departments, a couple of companies in allied health that run chains of, physiotherapy or osteopathy or whatever, and then also some in the private sector, an engineering company that I've been helping them with their leadership and culture. And I crunched the numbers. I thought to myself, geez, I'm undercharging. You could, you look at a professional salary. Let's just round figures. So say $100,000 for a junior professional salary here in Australia. And the cost of replacing an employee conservatively is 1.5 times their salary. Right?
Yeah.
That's the conservative cost of replacing a professional. And then you crunch the numbers, and when I can conservatively help an organization improve their attrition, their staff turnover, improve it by anywhere from 20 to 30%. And you crunch the numbers on that. I'm like, wow, I'm saving these companies, some of them like $1 million a year.
Yeah.
I should be
Huge.
charging more money. But no, you crunch the numbers and you see how quickly it changes that. And so that's only one of the KPIs that is an indicator to the health of a company, staff retention. And we should obviously have some attrition. That's natural and
Sure.
healthy as well. But when the staff retention numbers are healthy, that's just a signal of it's a place that people want to be. And when it's a place that people want to be, then it's a place where people are engaged. And then it's a place where people care more about the quality of what they do. And therefore the customers are getting better service or product. And therefore the results are better. So when you follow that all the way down to the bottom line, profits are better, but not because you've had a focus on growing profits, because you've had a focus on growing people and growing an environment where people thrive together.
And then you've created a more positive workplace, I think.
Yeah,
You know,
completely,
I've been in
completely. And
companies where we just had to hit our numbers and the anxiety you had, and you're like, it wasn't a way to
yeah,
live. And
no,
instead, give people the tools, give them the training, the mentoring to get them to be successful, and
yeah,
watch them go in the communication, of course, and watch them blossom. It'll
yeah.
happen.
It drove me to my midlife, what people call a midlife crisis, and being on the other side of it now, I look back and see it as a midlife opportunity or a
Yeah.
midlife awakening. But being in that corporate environment where the quarterly, the monthly, the weekly, the daily pressure to grow profit, not just to make profit, but grow profit. If your profit is not growing month on month, eventually you're in trouble. And as a senior corporate leader, you medicate. I medicated with a lot of booze, and you work super, super hard, and then you party super, super hard. And yeah, sure, we're flying business class around the world, and we're going to conferences in Vegas and Barcelona and everywhere around the world. But that's a one-way street to either a midlife crisis or burnout at the
Yeah.
least. And it is I was medicating because of the pressure. When I say medicating, I mean drinking too much
Yeah.
because the pressure is just full on. And yeah, sure, the company was profitable, but I I don't know. I know companies that are profitable not because they're focused on driving net profit growth every day. I know companies that are profitable and growing because they focus on their people, because they focus on creating a place where people want to thrive and they want to be there. And they're getting great results as a result of that, not because they're focused on the net profit. And I think times are changing and they should.
Yeah.
They should change. This drive to just incessantly grow profits is changing, and I think that's a good thing. I actually the leaders I coach them to starting to be motivated themselves, be motivated not by profit, but by being motivated by coaching the people that they lead to living their best life,
Yeah.
to creating a work environment where people can flourish, where they look forward to coming to work. And these leaders start to get a real sense of satisfaction, and they look at the legacy that they're leaving, which is the people that come to work every day in their organization are living somewhat fulfilled lives, and that's a much bigger motivator for a person than, yes, we're making more profit than last year.
In obviously me being in the commercial real estate industry, we're really behind the eight ball. We're evolving, but it's a slow process. We'll bring young people in, give them a little bit of mentoring, and put them on the phones and generate leads. Turnover is 90+%. Now our company is in the 60s because people still come in and they'll say, what, I'm not going to make money fast enough because it's 100% commission. But we tell them what we require them to do. We say, listen, I need you to hit X amount of calls every day, which they never make. But we also like, what are you good at? If you're not good at cold calling, how are you going to make money? Because cold calling is going to be the number one way for you to make money. And so we've figured out a way to really work with them. If it's going to be cold emails, sphere of influence is always the big one. These guys, they're really good at it. If you went to college, you've got all these people around you. So sphere of influence. If it's going to be cold emailing, follow up, or cold email, then do a cold call right after to the people. Hey, did you get my email? But we try and figure out a path for them so they aren't forced into doing something. That's what I think has helped our culture, is because people are more out. They don't have to hit the numbers. If they don't hit something every day, we sit down with them, or every week. They don't get an appointment or something. We sit down with them every day at 5 o'clock and go, okay, what'd you do today? What was that like? Where did you get with on your calls? Where did you get with on your emails? How many emails did you capture? And okay, try this tomorrow. And they're so much more responsive because we pivoted. We were just doing, okay, you got to do 100 phone calls today, and we were losing people pretty high numbers. And now we don't. Now we're getting a better quality people because we're listening to them like, listen, I am scared shitless of doing cold calling. Okay, well, we've got to get you there, but let's get you started by doing X, Y, and Z. And what a difference that makes. Just by listening to them and learning that when we're doing training, not everybody learns the same, because we were doing the same kind of training for everybody, and not everybody learns the same. And fortunately, one of them came and said, like, listen, I understand what you're saying. I'm struggling with the way you guys are training. And so we had to pivot that and make it a little bit more individualized. But we only know that because they came and spoke to us. They felt like they could. And so there's a lot. I'm learning a lot here at this age. I'm like, God damn, I should have thought of this so much long ago. But
well, better now than never.
Yeah, better late than never, right? I guess. But I'm thankful for the team we've got, and a lot of it was listening to your videos and listening to or reading some of what you wrote. I'm going to post the book up on the website too. It's going to be under the website is up here behind me, but if you go into training, it's going to be under that. So people are going to be able to go on and find your book. And I'm going to post it up a few times while we're talking here. But, I think it's really where companies are heading is what you're training. All right. So that's why I want to do this, because I think it's very important. Younger generation is forcing us to, in a good way, to really change and evolve.
They are, and not just the younger generation, but technology as well. Artificial intelligence and the language models. We do not know what it's going to look like in 5 years from now, because it's exponentially growing, and our brains are not wired to comprehend exponential growth.
Right.
Our brains can comprehend linear growth, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But we can't comprehend exponential growth, which is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, the doubling, right? I mean, I love, Joe, just quickly, I love this example of how our brains can't comprehend exponential growth, right? So if you walked outside your building now and you were standing on the street and you were facing north, say, and I asked you to imagine, where would you be if you took 30 linear steps? And let's just at round figures, one step is 1 meter, right? Where would you be if you took 30 linear steps? And you can imagine, you'd say, well, 30 meters from here, I'd be over there up by the lamppost, right? You can imagine it. If I asked you, where would you be if you took 30 exponential steps, so 1 meter becomes 2 and 4 and it doubles, where would you be? People are like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'd be in Canada. and they think that's a big guess. Some people might say, oh, maybe I'd be further, maybe I'd be in the North Pole, right? 30 exponential steps is 27 laps of the planet. 27
I'd be a lot
full
skinnier.
circumferences of the planet, right?
Yeah.
Now, our brains just would not have ever have guessed that that's how far that goes.
Yeah.
So, knowing that, when we look at these language models now that are actually doing things that the people who designed them couldn't predict, and that's just now in 2024. By 2030, we've got no idea what it's going to look like. So that's why I believe even more wholeheartedly now than ever before, we need to be focusing on developing and nurturing our people to people values, our people to people stuff, like you were talking about, individualizing the training, creating an environment where people feel safe to come to you and go, Joe, I am so scared of cold calls, right? Staying human, making it human centric, moving away from the post-industrial revolution where humans were standing on production lines and it was like, pack 50 boxes a day or you don't get paid, number 27.
Yeah.
Employees were given numbers. And we have come a long way from that, and we need to continue to move away from that because the job world as we know it today is going to look very different in 5 years from now, let alone 10 years from now. And so I think this focus on human-centric leadership, this focus on communication, this focus on connection, on compassion and care and all of these things, I think we have to be doing it.
I agree. I agree. And I think, yeah, we're going to see that it's going to be a great thing for everything that we're doing. All of our businesses will be around a lot longer after we're gone. And
Yeah.
what's next for you, Jim? What are you going to be up
What's
to?
next for me? Look, my partner Talia and I just got back from India. We run a retreat, a leadership retreat up in the Himalayan mountains of
Yep.
northwest India. We just got back 2 weeks ago, and it's a very special program for us, this one, because it's based out of a village with a family that I've been connected to for almost 30 years now. And so they're like our second family, and we love this retreat. And so now we've got it booked to happen again in October 2025, and we're super excited about that. We've built out a new program now. We're actually the program is specifically for exitpreneurs, exit founders, people who've ticked all of those boxes of creating success, and they're still feeling like, hang on, what's the point? They're not quite fulfilled yet. And our whole program, it's called Meaning on the Mountain, and our whole program, the mission of our program is to amplify positive ripples and turn them into big waves of contribution. So we're about taking small ripples of positive stuff and turning them into massive waves of contribution and giving back in socially responsible ways. So we're super fired up about that. And yeah, if you're interested, go to meaningonthemountain.com.au and check it out.
Well, we're going to put a link down below, and I was hoping you would send it. I'll capture off the video, or if you want to send it to me, that'd be even better. But we'll make sure that it gets down below. I'm also going to put
Yep.
a link to the book down below, and again on the website, and so
Yep.
everybody's going to be able to find it and recommended reading.
Yeah.
Especially for
Beautiful.
you guys out there. Get ahead.
Yeah.
Well, Jem,
Thanks,
thank you
Joe.
very much for today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yep. You're welcome. Thanks for having me on your show.
You bet. I appreciate it. We'll have to get you on again soon. I want to hear how it goes next October. And for those of you watching, thank you for taking the time today. I hope you appreciated what Jim had to say. If you could, please give us a like. And if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.